We're back on Timeless Performer with one of the timeless performers that is just awesome. And I love your South African accent. That really, you know, after living in England for 7 years, right, and they didn't understand me when I first went to school there, where I first moved there. And I have to tell you my experience briefly. I actually was mentored because they thought I had talent, okay? So one of the top florists sent me to school, gave me a scholarship to school. And if you've ever heard of Constance Spry, or your wife has heard of her, she's very famous. And they sent me to this academy, and it was freezing. And I was the only American. And I finally, and I couldn't understand some of their words because I didn't understand some of their, like, aluminium and all this other jazz. And they were having a hard time with me. But they put their arms around me and they took care of me that whole time. And here was this little budding person trying to become a floral arranger and a florist. And when I finally went to work for the florist, I had to do that. I got to do funeral wreaths. So I became really good at funeral wreaths, you know. And then later on in life, it got better and better. But when you were going to school, was there times when you were under scholarship that you got frustrated?
School was very, you mean talking about medical school? Or,
No, in your art school.
Always, even today you get disappointed.
Do you?
Absolutely. I mean, yesterday I was very disappointed. I mean,
Why?
I tried to draw.
Tell me why.
Because I tried to draw, I try to draw the little ones, the little ones more because they're easier to get sell or to give away than the bigger ones. And
why do you think?
Because the firstly they're whimsical. That is my main emphasis.
You're whimsical.
Whimsical. I'm try to be colorful and very whimsical.
Okay.
I do not try to draw realistic because I'm not good enough to draw realistic. I've realized where my
where your talent is
and where my weaknesses are, and I've tried to enhance on that. So I could not paint a portrait of a person and look realistic because I wouldn't know how to do it.
Right.
And I've tried it and it just doesn't work.
Okay, when you sit down to actually capture that on paper, what's the first thing that happens? Do you actually sketch it out first?
It's like anything else. If you've got no structure, you're doomed. It's like a building. If you haven't got the bricks to draw on, it's going to fail. So unless you've got a basic drawing on paper, well, that's my experience, it will never work. So I try and draw the basic form and then paint around it. Because I find that the color is easy for me. It's the form that's hard.
Do you work in pencil or what do you do?
It depends upon the size. If I'm working on a canvas, I work on charcoal because it's easy to erase. If I'm working on these little ones, I work very lightly on pencil because you don't want the pencil lines really to come through. So I do these on pencil and then I step back and look at it and see what it looks like and then I bring the color in. Once the form's done, then it becomes very easy for me.
Right. You know, we did a television show a few years ago and it was a children's television show with an artist. And the problem was that we had to create it ahead of time so that she could just trace over it like she was drawing it in, you know, whatever. And we found that yellow doesn't show on paper on TV. So what we did was we sketched everything in yellows.
Well, you might add in many of these paintings, if you look at this one, you can see the pencil mark coming through because in watercolor it's often nice to see the pencil mark underlying it.
Really? Well, see, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see that.
Yeah, so sometimes the pencil marks show, sometimes you bring black ink on it. It's
just part of the art.
It's just part of the fun. You can't take yourself too seriously.
Do you know, I have to share this with you because I started a program for children called Partners in Art Education because kids were not getting art in school and they were excluding it out of school, and children really need to be encouraged, right?
Right.
And I had children in Mount Holly, New Jersey, that were in the original orphanages, right? And they asked me to create a program for children. And so and that wasn't funded. So I have to get a funding source as well as teach them. So what we did is, I always start my program out with, there's no mistakes in arts. That's why pencils have erasers. Because I want you to think outside the box. Okay? And I had a little African-American boy who never spoke. But these kids were abused and neglected children that were in this facility. And they didn't talk, a lot of them. And one day I was doing a program with the second class that he had been in. And there was a young man, a little bit older than him, and he was tearing up his work. And all of a sudden I heard this little voice. There's no mistakes in art. That's why pencils have erasers. I almost fell off the chair. I couldn't hug this kid and embarrass him. But afterwards in the cafeteria, I said, Lamont, I'm so proud of you. Wow. And you could see this little smile. Yeah. And that was one child I touched.
Yeah.
I
think through art and whatever form, whether it's music, I knew a woman many years ago who played the piano really beautifully, and she said to me, I can make people cry or laugh just by the way I play the piano, and it's true. And you can touch people by the emotion,
what you're doing,
by what you're doing or by other people doing, and not everybody likes what I'm doing. I mean, let's be honest about it. A lot of people could care less about this. A lot of people like abstract art. A lot of people like landscape. It's just like your nose against my face. It's very variable. But some people like what you're doing. But the thing that I've realized many years ago in medicine is that you can't take it seriously. You can't. If somebody's upset with you or doesn't like what you do, don't take it personally. It's their personal choice.
And that's the reason why I represented so many artists, because they tend to be a little bit more critical about their work. And where I stand back and I look at it and I admire it for its beauty and the artist himself and tell the story of the artist. Because I think that no matter if you're selling your art or you have somebody else selling it, right, they look at it differently than you do. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So that's the reason why I love artists, because I can take what they do and I can really jump out there with it and get really excited about it. And it's amazing how many artists there are today in so many formats, wouldn't you say?
So many, it's just amazing. Just amazing. And everybody does
something different.
And you shouldn't be critical of the next person because their stuff is as good as yours.
Have you seen a paper artist that creates a piece like this?
Absolutely.
Aren't they gorgeous?
Gorgeous.
Absolutely.
And I think that he has more skill than this.
Well, it's amazing. We did a program many years ago with Partners on Art Education with a famous paper artist who let the children pour it. So every piece was all drawn out first, and then they actually took and made paper in different colors and then poured it and put it into the frame. And it ended up being a 5 by 8 foot piece of a very famous artwork. And that to me gets me excited to see different formats, right?
Absolutely. And everybody's got a story to tell, and
That's
everybody's story is as good as yours. And I sometimes sit back and amuse at people when you see people with such large egos, they think that they're the best, and I just think, whatever. What difference does it make?
Right.
That's what they want.
Do you sit down and play and then do art?
Well, I must tell you that my piano playing has suffered because of this. Because you can't do, and my photography suffered and my piano playing, because you can't do, if you play the piano and you want to play it well, you got to play many hours a week.
Let me ask this question. Why couldn't you at your studio, I don't know if you have your piano there or not. You don't?
No.
How big is your studio?
Big. It's about 35 foot long by 15 or 20 foot wide. It's a big studio.
Could you bring in a piece that you could play in an art show?
No.
Do you ever have music with your art shows?
No.
Why?
You mean me playing the piano? No.
Why?
Because my emphasis now is on this.
But music and art go together.
Absolutely.
Do you put music on when you have art?
Absolutely.
Okay. And on that note, we need to take a short break. Where can people find you?
At Julius Danziger, jdcolors.com, or Julius Danziger.
And on that note, we're taking a short break on Timeless Performers. We'll be right back after these important messages.